I recently picked up Legends of Localization 3 Undertale, a book which details the process of translating Undertale into Japanese, changes made to accommodate the new language, and a lot of stuff about localization in general. It's a good book, I'd recommend it if you're even remotely interested in that kind of thing. But something that caught my eye was the abundance of times it brings up lines where Undertale references something else, and a lot of them were things I either didn't pick up on or referencing things I'd never even heard about in the first place. So that got me thinking. Undertale sure does love referencing its inspirations in-game. I wonder if there's a full list of these out there. Well, despite Undertale's massive popularity, I couldn't really find what I was looking for. Best I could get is trivia on wiki pages, scattered interviews, and videos from around the time of the game's release. And we've learned a lot more about Undertale's creation in the decades since then, so I decided, you know what, I'll make a list myself. Now, I don't want to act like I'm finding anything new here. Most of this is just compiling information from a bunch of sources like books, interviews, forums, and wikis. All of this was already out there, I'm just putting it together and talking about it. I don't have any new discoveries or grand revelations, but I almost guarantee you'll learn something new. By the nature of this video, not everything I'll be discussing is 100% confirmed, some is just speculation. So I'll put a small icon in the corner to indicate my personal confidence in them. The annoying dog will be displayed for things confirmed by a primary source, such as the official books, the 10th anniversary stream, or just social media posts from Toby Fox. As for everything else, I'll display a different colored soul. Green means it's something I'm very confident in, but isn't explicitly confirmed. Yellow will be for things that I think are believable, but I'm not 100% convinced of, or I might just not be familiar enough with what it's supposedly referencing. And red is for things that I think are a bit of a stretch. Don't completely rule out the red ones though, since some of the confirmed facts would absolutely be here if not for the word of the author. And it's all just my opinion, I might be missing some information that makes some of these more or less believable. Also, because I don't have time to play through a bunch of games for this video, I'll be using a lot of footage from long play channels and such. As usual, the sources for those will be in the bottom left. And I'll have a list of sources for the confirmed references linked in the description. Oh, and this video is going to have spoilers. Major spoiler warning for Undertale, obviously, but also Earthbound and Homestuck. There'll be minor spoilers for some other stuff here and there, but I've tried to be vague enough and edit accordingly that I hopefully won't cover anything huge. But for those ones, it was kind of unavoidable. With all of that preamble out of the way, let's start going through all the possible references and inspirations I could find, vaguely in order of appearance. Upon opening Undertale, an intro sequence will play. The music that plays here is inspired by the title screen of Mother 1. The Mother series was one of Toby Fox's biggest inspirations for Undertale, and its influence is ever present, shining through in the writing, tone, humor, pretty much every aspect of the game. Even the heavy reuse of motifs in the soundtrack was inspired by Mother 3, so you'll be seeing a lot of this series throughout the video. In fact, there's another direct reference in this intro. Mount Ebot is named after Undertale's creator, with Ebot being a backwards pronunciation of Toby. This decision mirrors Mother 1, as its mountain is named Mount Itoi after Shigesato Itoi, the creator and director of the Mother series. According to the art book, Flowey was inspired by Face from the Godzilla NES creepypasta. Toby Fox's previous work before Undertale, the Earthbound Halloween hack, also had talking flowers in it. I also think it's worth mentioning that Flowey's voice clips are sampled from a 1960s McDonald's commercial.
That's a wonderful idea! That's a wonderful idea!
The music here, Your Best Friend, sounds very similar to the Fun song from SpongeBob, but I know Nickelodeon can be pretty tight-gripped when it comes to that brand, so I'm not going to risk playing it like I will with other music going forward. There's more to say about Flowey, but I'll save it for his boss fight. Toriel shows up immediately after, and Toby Fox said she was created because he felt that mother figures were often overlooked in RPGs, existing more as symbols than characters, and citing his frustration with the depictions in games like Pokemon and the Mother series. The name Toriel comes from Tutorial, as her role parodies hand-holdy video game tutorials, with Toby Fox directly mentioning Fi from Skyward Sword as an example of an overbearing tutorial character. Though I've seen some people interpret her name as a reference to Turiel, one of the Watcher Angels in Judaism from the Book of Enoch. She was also originally humanoid and inspired by Myriad from Breath of Fire 3, described as an overprotective goddess, but this was ultimately changed as Toby Fox felt it was too similar. The final visual design was inspired by the Mimiga from Cave Story. Her theme, Fallen Down, originates from an Earthbound collab album titled I Miss You, featuring the work of many artists including Toby Fox, who reused the track for Undertale. The song itself was inspired by the Game Over music from Zelda 1, as it was originally intended to play on a Game Over screen. After Toriel leaves and asks you to wait patiently, you'll receive a phone call every 5 minutes you wait in the room, the second of which ends with her saying, "Please understand," which is a common phrase used by Satoru Iwata in videos apologizing for delays and such.
Please understand the situation.
The Ruins take heavy inspiration from Brandish, a 1991 action RPG for the PC-98 that later had a remake for the SNES, and even later a remake for the PSP. The game focuses on falling into an underground world and trying to get back to the surface. The first area in both games is called Ruins, and both feature wall plaques to give information to the player. This switch puzzle with the changing perspectives is also a reference to Brandish, as one of its main mechanics is the ability to rotate the camera. And this room with the cracked floor and holes was also taken from Brandish. The Ruins music was inspired by Secret of Mana, but he didn't say which track in particular, so I can't really compare them. The combat screen resembles Earthbound's, where the player character isn't on screen and the camera is instead aimed directly at the enemies. The enemy attacks being bullet hells are inspired by Toho Project, and the battle minigames themselves are inspired by the Mario and Luigi RPGs. Toby Fox has also said that the idea for having non-combat ways to end encounters was inspired by Shin Megami Tensei. I'll cover the enemies of each area together, so for the Ruins, Froggett's check description says, "Life is difficult for this enemy," which is a reference to Kermit the Frog, specifically his song "It's Not Easy Being Green." Vegetoid has flavor text saying, "Vegetoid's here for your health," which is a reference to Tim and Eric Awesome Show Great Job, and its spin-off Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule, where the titular doctor would often recommend outlandish treatments for the sake of your health.
Just put some vinegar on it. Why didn't you think of that? For your health.
When Migosp has allies in battle, its dialogue will say things like "Heed the Swarm," "Filthy Single-Minder," and "Obey the Overmind," which is a reference to the Zergs from StarCraft, a hive-mind species of insect led by a creature called the Overmind. Luke's looks like Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc., or the Ahriman from Final Fantasy. Considering its sprite name in the files is SPR NPC Mike Wazowski, I'd say he's the bigger influence of the two. Luke's check description will also say, "Family name Eyewalker," meaning its full name is Luke's Eyewalker, in reference to Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. Its dialogue, "Please don't pick on me," is a direct quote from the NES game Monster Party. There's also some enemies exclusive to the hard mode Easter egg. Parsnip is obviously based on Medusa from Greek mythology. Migospel's name carries religious connotations, and since the rest of its design is clown-themed, it's possibly inspired by Gamzee Makara from Homestuck, a religious zealot for his clown-based faith. Toby Fox was also previously a composer for Homestuck. There's a few things to talk about with Napstablook. Their name is a reference to Napster, a music-sharing platform from the early 2000s, which ties into the music stuff later on. But what you might not know is that this wasn't planned from the start. Napstablook's name was actually randomly generated, but because playtesters pointed out how the name sounded like Napster, Toby Fox added the music connection later. The track Ghost Fight was also originally composed for a Super Nintendo music compilation far before Undertale was created, but the decision to use jazz music as a theme for a ghost was inspired by the game Off. I've also seen some people say they look like QQ-kun from Yumaniki, at least in the battle sprite, but I don't think this was intentional. When winning a battle, the text box will exclaim, "You won," which is a direct reference to Earthbound. The song Determination is inspired by Brandish's game over music. The concept of foreshadowing a late-game boss with the Game Over screen was inspired by Odin from Final Fantasy Legend II. In Home, Toriel will talk about baking a snail pie, which is a reference to a bizarre line from Illusion of Gaia, where they mention snail pie in the English version of the game despite just being a meat pie in the original Japanese version. Very strange localization choice. Sans and his brother Papyrus are both inspired by J.N. Weedle's comic Helvetica, which features a skeleton named after a font, similar to how Sans is named after Comic Sans and Papyrus is named after Papyrus. Papyrus was also initially called Times New Roman in early development. Their text is also unique, with Sans speaking in all lowercase and Papyrus speaking in all uppercase. This extends to some other characters too, such as Toriel never using contractions, except for that one time. In the 10th anniversary stream, Toby Fox likens these to Homestuck typing quirks. I don't know if that means it's a direct inspiration or if it's just a simple comparison, but I thought I should bring it up anyways. The skeletons also each take some inspiration from characters in Off. Papyrus was initially envisioned more as an irredeemable villain who took some very clear visual inspiration from Dedan before being redesigned later in development, while Sans takes some inspiration from Zachary, who is this wisecracking, fourth-wall-breaking character present throughout the whole game, and the Judge, because, you know. Also, the way Papyrus laughs is similar to that of Skeletor from Masters of the Universe. The dimensional boxes found throughout the game are a direct reference to Brandish, as it also has dimensional boxes labeled with letters. A prototype version of Snowy, the Snowdin Forest music, strangely appeared in the game files of Starbound shortly before Undertale's release. Toby Fox was composing music for that game at the time, but ended up leaving development and ultimately none of his music appears in-game. So there's a possibility that Snowy was originally created for Starbound and then repurposed for Undertale, although this is unconfirmed. There's a snowman in the forest who asks you to take a piece of it with you, and if you finish the game with the snow piece in your inventory, you get an extra bit of dialogue. This was inspired by a side quest in Cave Story, where you can keep a little man in your inventory who you need to return to his family, but there's special text if you forget to do that and carry him to the end of the game. Papyrus refers to his armor as his battle body, which is a shared term with Sigma's ultimate form in Mega Man X3, although the armor itself doesn't share any visual similarities. Interacting with these snow puffs will give you nothing. Unless you interact with all of them, then you'll find 30 gold in the last one. This is a reference to an Earthbound NPC found in the Tucson Hotel, who gives you $50 if you talk to him 17 times. The item Nice Cream is possibly named after the truck seen on the first page of And It Don't Stop by Andrew Hussey, the creator of Homestuck. The Nice Cream salesman, being a blue, rabbit-like monster, could also be a reference to the Blue Bunny brand of ice cream. Also, Ice-E kind of looks like the Duck Hunt dog. As for enemies in Snowdin, Lesser Dog and Greater Dog's naming convention is common among many RPGs, but in communication with the localization team, Toby Fox directly mentions Dungeons & Dragons. After petting Lesser Dog 53 times, the text will say, "Lesser Dog has gone where no dog has gone before," which is a reference to the original Star Trek intro.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Dogamy and Doggeressa are visually inspired by Brian Lee's Troublers. Dogamy's line, "Take my wife's fleas," is a parody of 20th century comedian Henny Youngman's catchphrase.
Take my wife, please.
In a 2013 interview with The Escapist, rest in peace by the way, Toby Fox likens the timing element that comes with blue attacks to the situational awareness required in Super Punch-Out. When Jerry comes back after you ditch him, the flavor text says, "Return of Jerry," which is a direct reference to Zelda 2's game over screen, "Return of Ganon." There's a room that has a special encounter if you walk around for 2 minutes. This could be inspired by the method to enter Belch's factory in Earthbound, which requires you to stand still for 3 minutes. The special encounter is with Glide, a Kickstarter backer character that is possibly based on the Twilight from Mortasheen, as they're both vain, narcissistic fish creatures. The shop system and UI in Undertale is directly inspired by Brandish. Like, look at this, it's almost 1-to-1. And the stats menu was also inspired by Brandish. Lesser Dog playing poker in Grillby's is a reference to the famous paintings by Cassius Marcellus Coolidge. Those paintings were actually commissioned to advertise cigars, so that might tie into the smoking dog treats gag earlier in Snowdin, but I'm much less confident in that. This little bunny character also kinda looks like Spinder from Pokemon, or about as close as you can get before Nintendo sends people out to kill you. In Snowdin, Monster Kid will say, "Yo, you're a kid too, right? I can tell cause you're wearing a striped shirt," which pays homage to the Mother series, where all the protagonists are kids with striped shirts. The Red Demon NPC will say "Smile, smile," which is a reference to Earthbound. In the console releases of Undertale, there's an extra room inside Papyrus's sink. In the PlayStation version of this room, interacting with the blueprints will display the text, "Blue Paw Prints." Could it be a clue? Which is a reference to the children's TV show Blue's Clues. In the Nintendo Switch version, there will be a door at the back that is locked with a mysterious seal, similar to those seen in Chrono Trigger. It even plays a jingle in the same sound font. After defeating Metaton, you can return here for a special fight with Mad Mew Mew, who is almost definitely inspired by Ichigo Momomiya, the protagonist of Tokyo Mew Mew, also known as Mew Mew Power in the West. She has a line during battle where she says, "Tubular, way cool, awesome, groovy, mondo, outrageous, funky," which are the English names of the special zones from Super Mario World. I learned that from the Legends of Localization book, where they say, "Toby didn't mention it at the time." What do you mean at the time? Did he confirm it later? Did he confirm it at all? Obviously it's a direct reference, but I just don't know if I should note this down as confirmed or not. She might also be inspired by Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. She's the same ghost as the Mad Dummy, who also potentially references Dio, and this time she's trying to merge with a new body, starting with the head. I'm going to be real, I think this whole new body thing is just an allegory for being trans. But she does say, "It was me," and make a somewhat similar face to when Dio says that, so yeah, I can see that part being a JoJo's reference. Sans' theme was inspired by the In and Out crowd song from Sesame Street.
We're too hip to go outside. We're in with the in crowd.
In the genocide route, Sans' line about having a bad time might be a South Park reference.
First of all, look straight ahead when you ski. If you look down, you're gonna fall. You're gonna have a bad time.
In Papyrus's battle sprite, his armor clearly sports a Starman symbol from Earthbound. During his fight, he'll say, "The king will trim a hedge in the shape of my smile," which could be a reference to a scene in Black Butler where a character trims all the hedges to look like skulls. The music in that scene even kinda sounds like Bone Trussell. If you kill him in the neutral route, his head will drop into his hands, and he'll say, "Alas poor Papyrus," which is a reference to the line, "Alas poor Yorick" from Shakespeare's Hamlet. The date/hangout scene opens with the line "dating start" or "hangout start," which is a direct reference to Mario Start or Luigi Start at the beginning of Super Mario World stages. The rest of the scene pays homage to the Ace Attorney series, with his inspection segment resembling the investigation scenes, and the music tracks are similar to some from Ace Attorney. I've seen someone say the crime radar is a reference to SimCity 2000 on the SNES, but I don't really see it. I'm not going to mention it every time going forward, but whenever there's wall plaques, just assume it's inspired by Brandish. These chase sequences with Undyne were inspired by SAX from Metroid Fusion. The punch cards you get from buying Nice Cream can actually be used in battle, which shows the text, "Aura!" You rip up the punch card. Your hands are burning. I've seen people assume this is a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. However, Aura is just a generic Japanese battle cry that you can find in a ton of different media. It was definitely popularized by JoJo's though, so it's pretty plausible. The Mystery Man encounter is most likely inspired by the Uboa event from Yumeniki. On top of the visual similarities, they are both tied to chance, with Uboa being a 1 in 64 chance each time you enter the room, and Mystery Man being a 1 in 1000 chance each playthrough. Additionally, Toby Fox has previously used the Uboa sprite in the Halloween hack. Also yeah, everyone thinks this is W.D. Gaster, who is probably named after fonts like the skeletons are. WD being an abbreviation of Wingdings, which he writes his messages in, and Gaster potentially being derived from Aster. But I think that's a bit of a stretch considering Aster fonts appear nowhere in-game. Some people say Aster is the font that Sans snores in during his battle, but this is actually a misconception, and it's most likely just a custom sprite. His name could also be inspired by M.D. Seeger, a name appearing in the credits of Earthbound. You might be wondering why Toby Fox would reference this random guy you've probably never heard of, but as it turns out, M.D. Seeger is actually an alias for Shigeru Miyamoto. Although it might not be intentional, as the names are only kind of similar. Calling Papyrus in front of Onion Sun will have him say hum hum hum, which is a reference to the English social media posts from the game studio Onion Games. That's the people who made Moon Remix RPG Adventure, which is another direct inspiration for Undertale. I won't describe the whole game, but Moon is a subversion of the RPG genre where you play as a side character after the hero has ravaged the lands, with the goal being to increase your LV, short for love, by helping NPCs rather than hurting them. As a side note, Toby Fox hadn't actually played Moon when he took inspiration from it. The reason being that Moon wasn't localized until 2020, over 2 decades after its release. And the reason it got localized at all was because of a conversation Moon's original producer, Yoshiro Kimura, had with Toby Fox. Additionally, Onion Games' newest RPG, Stray Children, takes some inspiration from Undertale. I just thought that was interesting, kind of a full circle moment. Tangent over. Returning to Onion Sun's room after the first encounter, they'll say they're starting a band called the Red Hot Chibi Peppers, which is obviously a play on the Red Hot Chili Peppers. As for battles in Waterfall, Aaron being a buff, sweaty horse thing is inspired by Equius Zahak from Homestuck, who's buff, sweaty, and obsessed with horses. His line, education, hobby, talent, is a direct quote from the director of HR in Breath of Fire 2. Washua's design was based on a sketch posted by Omocat, who you might know as the creator of Omori, although I couldn't seem to find that sketch online. It says "out-donned spot," which is a reference to the line "out-damned spot, out I say" from Shakespeare's Macbeth. When fighting Moldsmal in Waterfall, the Czech dialogue will say, "It's a different color, so it's a bit stronger now," which isn't a reference to a specific game, rather a common RPG trope where differently colored slimes have different stats. Shiren will occasionally say, "See Ray, see me," which are lyrics to a Franco Godi song of the same name. The intro before the Mad Dummy fight is a reference to Gutsman's ass, which is an old internet meme. The music that plays here also samples Venus from her performance at Topola Theatre in Earthbound. I've also heard the backing sound similar to this part in Black, a song Toby Fox composed for Homestuck. I don't personally hear anything, but I thought I'd include it anyway because I'm not a music expert. And Mad Dummy saying "futile, futile, futile" could be inspired by Dio's Muda Muda battle cry from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which roughly translates to useless or futile. They also both throw knives. In Napsterbluke's house, one of the songs titled Guladay is literally just jingle bells. Thundersnail is inspired by the Season 3 SpongeBob episode The Great Snail Race, where SpongeBob aggressively trains Gary, leading to him catching fire and exploding during the race. The Temmie village is probably inspired by Satin Valley from Earthbound, as both are inhabited by strange creatures that speak a bizarre version of English. The Temmies introducing themselves as Temmie, and Bob is reminiscent of a joke in Earthbound where 3 NPCs are named Pincho, Poncho, and Thomas Jefferson. If you befriended Undyne in a previous playthrough, her monologue includes the line, "I, Undyne, will knock you down," which is a reference to "I, Garland, will knock you all down," a weirdly translated line in the original English version of Final Fantasy. The save point before the fight with Undyne says, "The wind is howling," which is a reference to the line, "The black wind howls," from Chrono Trigger. I know that sounds like a huge stretch, but it was actually confirmed. Undyne's name is a reference to Undine, a kind of mythological water nymph originating from the writings of Paracelsus. They have been referenced by many different series, but in the 10th anniversary stream, Toby Fox specifically mentions Secret of Mana as an inspiration. Her armor also somewhat resembles the shape of the Saiyan armor from Dragon Ball Z. The instruments used in her battle music, Spear of Justice, are in reference to Toho Project's music. The same is true for her genocide route theme, Battle Against a True Hero, most notably in its last third. Toby Fox and Zun, the creator of Toho Project, even did an official collab combining this track with one from Toho. The intro to this song also sounds similar to Verses from Homestuck. And the title is a reference to the unofficial names of battle themes in Earthbound, which is also a pretty common naming convention among Earthbound fan songs. The song that plays in the scene right before this, "But the Earth Refused to Die," is a possible reference to Chrono Trigger's Game Over screen, which reads, "But the future refused to change." In the 10th anniversary stream, Toby Fox noted that Undyne shares some similarities with Homestuck's trolls, such as the yellow eyes, face fins, mouth shape on her overworld sprite, and red Vriska shoes. His words, not mine. The track She's Playing Piano, which plays outside before her hangout event, has a slight resemblance to Doctor from Homestuck. Toby Fox didn't create that song, but he did create Savior of the Waking World, which uses its motif. The dummy outside will also say, "It's a living," which is a running gag in the Flintstones.
It's a living.
There's a few jokes about how Alfie's told Undyne all the anime she watches is actual human history. The line about humans wielding giant swords could be a reference to a wide range of anime, but it's impossible to tell which one specifically, so pick your favorite. Same goes for the line about giant robots. If you call Undyne in front of the royal guards, she will recall an animation Alfie showed her where humans could control minds and tells you to use your powers to get them to move. She also said it was really good. This is possibly in reference to Code Geass, which has a protagonist who can control minds and was also critically acclaimed. When traveling with the river person, there is a chance their boat will turn into this cat thing that runs across the water. This might be inspired by the Mr. Saturn coffee table from Mother 3. They also have a chance to say, "Remember to take a break every so often," similar to how Ness's father will call you throughout Earthbound and remind you to take breaks. This is a really weird one. When trying to interact with anything in the lab while the lights are off, you'll get text saying it's too dark to see near the walls, which is a reference to a line from Brandish. This sounds like a major stretch, but no, it's actually confirmed. Apparently Toby Fox mentioned it multiple times to the translation team, so he must really like this one seemingly throwaway line for some reason. During the 10th anniversary stream, Toby Fox said the visual inspiration for Alfie's is a mix of John Egbert, Lisa Simpson, and I quote, "the lizard guy from Super Barbara Mario, by the way I never played that game," which is Francis from Super Paper Mario. Alfie's saying "oh no" before Mettaton breaks down the wall and says "oh yes" might be a reference to a running gag in Family Guy.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh yeah!
Mettaton has multiple direct inspirations. He was visually inspired by the robot cooker from Wallace and Gromit: A Grand Day Out, but he is also based on Bob Sparker from Tales from Electropolis, directly mentioned in the True Pacifist credits, and he was also confirmed to have some inspiration from the Twitter user Nerdbot Mark II. His name could also possibly be inspired by Metatron from Judeo-Islamic lore, or more likely its appearance in Shin Megami Tensei, or maybe Metaltron from Doctor Who knows. He could also be inspired by the character TV Dinner from Little King's Story, which is a game directed by Yoshiro Kimura, who I mentioned earlier. Both characters are show hosts who put the protagonist through dangerous game shows. This definitely could have been an influence on Mettaton, but nowadays I can think of a different Toby Fox character this applies more to. This battle was also inspired by R7038 from Mother 1, being a robot that can't be defeated by normal means. Originally it was going to have the same perspective too, but it got changed because it didn't match with Alfie's also being on screen. Before one of his questions, he'll say "Let's Play Memory Game," which is a reference to Let's Play Money Making Game from the original Legend of Zelda. Hotland was possibly inspired by the land of heat and clockwork from Homestuck. You can make similar comparisons for Undertale's other areas, with the ruins and Durst, Snowdin in the land of Frost and Frogs, Waterfall in the land of Wind and Shade, and the Lost Corridor in Prospit. The music for Hotland, another medium, was originally composed under the name Patient as a remix of Doctor from Homestuck. Its title may also be referencing the medium from Homestuck, which refers to the entire space in which Spurb, the game within the story, is played, and as such Undertale would be played in another medium. Though it's probably just because they're literally different mediums, Undertale being a game and Homestuck being a webcomic. Many of Alphys' posts are about the anime Mew Mew Kissy Cutie, which is a reference to Tokyo Mew Mew. She even has a little rant about the sequel being bad, which apparently mirrors real life, as I've heard Tokyo Mew Mew's sequel wasn't as well received as the original. I haven't watched either, so I can't personally weigh in. There's a line if you call Papyrus in Hotland where he'll say, "Steam vents, wow, that sounds awful, what if you're wearing a dress?" which is a reference to that famous scene from The 7-Year Itch. In this cooking show part, Mettaton will say MTT brand ovens can reach temperatures up to 9,000 degrees, which is apparently not a reference to the old Dragon Ball over 9,000 meme, as Toby Fox specifically deconfirmed it with the localization team. I don't really know where else to throw this in, but the humor in Undertale is partially influenced by Mr. Bean. This background with the core was inspired by Sigma's boss arena from Mega Man X2. So Sorry has extra enemies called Doodlebogs, which could be named after Doodlebob from SpongeBob, as they're both drawings brought to life. As for Hotland's random encounters, Sunderplane's hat is directly based on Yukari Yakumo from Toho Project, and the method to spare it requires you to go near its bullets but not touch them, which resembles the grazing mechanic seen in Toho games. Some people believe Pyrope is named after Terezi Pyrope from Homestuck, but in the 10th anniversary stream, Toby Fox deconfirmed this, and instead said it's named that because it's a rope that's on fire. In the genocide route, the Royal Guard's check description features indirect quotes from the novel Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. This one is an insane reach, but the Royal Guards might be inspired by Karkat Vantas and Dave Strider from Homestuck, as they also speak in Dudebro dialect, are romantically involved, and both considered knights in Homestuck's class system. So there's a bit of a connection there, but honestly I think it's just coincidence. In the MTT News segment, if you interact with the movie script, Mettaton will describe a scene in his upcoming film where he is showered in rose petals, which might be a reference to the 1999 film American Beauty. After all the objects are revealed to be bombs, Mettaton will say this news report is turning into a disaster report, which is the name of a PS2 game, and the effect of his words turning into bombs could be a reference to Peach losing her voice in Superstar Saga. If you call Papyrus in front of the L2 elevator, he'll comment on how he used to cook lasagna, but a dog kept eating it and retreating into a blue box to sleep, which is probably a reference to the famous lasagna-loving comic strip cat Garfield. At Muffet's Bake Sale, the croissant bears a striking resemblance to the Power Bracelet from the Legend of Zelda series, and the Inspect dialogue even references it. The ludicrous prices at the bake sale may be a reference to Mimi from Super Paper Mario, who wants you to pay off an insanely high and unreasonable debt. And she's also a spider. But considering Toby Fox said he hasn't played that game, I wouldn't count on it. Muffet herself is named after the nursery rhyme Little Miss Muffet. Super obvious, but I have to bring it up. Her check description also references the opening line of the poem The Spider and the Fly. The up next signs in her battle are inspired by the arena mode in Kirby Superstar. The opera scene with Mettaton is a direct reference to a similar scene from Final Fantasy VI, as both take place in a castle, sync their lyrics to the background music, and the music itself takes heavy influence from that scene. This might be the most blatant reference in the game. In the MTT Hotel, there's an NPC that somewhat resembles Jade Harley from Homestuck. This was never confirmed as an inspiration, but Toby Fox has commented on the similarity. Burger Pants was apparently designed as a Parappa-inspired character, and then went wrong. His backstory is also inspired by the Pockets of Spaghetti copy pasta. Calling Papyrus in the hotel room will have him say, "The price is right," which could be a reference to the game show, or maybe just a simple idiom. If your character is named Gigi, Gugu, or Drac, the steak in the shape of Mettaton's face will be shortened to F-steak in the menus, rather than face steak. This is a reference to one of Gigi DG's Persona 4 comics, which actually gained so much traction that it was referenced in Persona 4 Golden as well. Or at least that's what it's supposed to do. I couldn't actually get this to work for me. On the wiki it says until version 1.01, so I can only assume this was removed or something, but I went back to the release version and still nothing. I also can't seem to find any footage or screenshots of this, but I can find a lot of people talking about it, and I do remember hearing about it back in the ancient times of 2015. And I could also find it in an Undertale text dump, so I'm certain it's in the game, or at least was in the game at some point, but I just don't have any in-game proof of it. Leaving a dog salad in front of this door will display the text, "The dog salad was absorbed by the darkness," which is the same phrasing used when Paula's prayers go unanswered in the Gygas fight, weirdly enough. There's a sign in the core that says "Get lost, and stay that way," which is another direct quote from Brandish. The background music in here will also continue to play throughout enemy encounters, which could be inspired by the Ocean Palace from Chrono Trigger. Finding items in the trash cans could also be an Earthbound reference. Magic is an enemy with disconnected floating body parts, which according to the art book was inspired by Rayman or maybe Plock. It also has unused floating hands in the files. It says multiple magic words and other phrases of the sort, one of them being Tinkle Tinkle Hoy, which is a reference to the manga Oyasumi Punpun. Whimsalot loses its mask when defeated in battle, which might reference Meta Knight from the Kirby series, who similarly loses his mask after battle. Final Frogget is probably a reference to the Final Starman from Earthbound, as both are stronger, spikier late-game versions of earlier enemies. The intro music to the Mettaton EX fight resembles the intro to Killed by BR8K Spider, a track Toby Fox composed for Homestuck. Mettaton's battle themes, Metal Crusher and Death by Glamour, originate from a fan song Toby Fox made for Noisemaster, a character from the webcomic Cucumber Quest by GGDG. Toby Fox has said Metatron EX's default face has some Guitaru Man influence. The bombs used in some attacks function similarly to how they work in the Bomberman series. The happy break time pause is a reference to Gunstar Heroes. In the Genocide route, Metatron Neo has an arm cannon that resembles a Buster from Mega Man. This was also alluded to in the 10th anniversary stream. Undertale, the song that plays throughout New Home, was inspired by Redline Day from Redline and Numa from Solanin. I'm not sure if I can play either of those, but you can find them pretty easily online if you want to give them a listen. I guess it's also worth bringing up here that Undertale, the title of the game, was chosen because Toby Fox realized a lot of things he liked had titles comprised of 2 words, such as Earthbound or Homestuck, and Undertale specifically mirrors Cave Story, as their names have pretty similar meanings when you break them down. The Worn Dagger and Heart Locket being found in these gift boxes are a reference to the Mother series, where items are frequently found inside presents. The real knife could also be named after the real bat from Mother 3. In this hallway, Sans will judge you based on your actions throughout the game, and Sans' name is pronounced in Japanese as Sanzu, the same as the mythological Sanzu River from Buddhist lore, which the souls of the deceased must first cross and be judged before entering the afterlife. I don't think this was intentional, but hey, it's a pretty cool connection. I like it. His battle theme, Megalovania, has previously appeared in Homestuck and even previously before that in the Earthbound Halloween hack. The version of Megalovania in the Halloween hack was also inspired by Garo Barara from Brandish 2 The Planet Buster. So I guess there's some influence in Undertale if you follow the trail back far enough. The song's title is based on the song Megalomania from Live Alive, which was initially planned to be the final boss theme in the Halloween hack. The opening line to this fight is a reference to an NPC in Earthbound who says, "At times like this, kids like you should be playing Nintendo games." In Undertale, resetting the game is explained in-universe as timelines stopping and starting abruptly, which is possibly inspired by Homestuck, as it also has multiple timelines, some of which are doomed and can cease to exist. Sans' special attack, where he doesn't end his turn so you're basically stuck, mirrors a moment in Homestuck where Aradia freezes herself and Bec Noir in time to temporarily stop his murderous rampage, very similar to what Sans tries to do. On its own that's not much, but this is also the scene where Megalovania plays in both of them. Asgore was originally envisioned as a quieter, more intimidating character, but Toby Fox decided to make him goofier after thinking about his friend Reed Young, creator of the Starman.net forums and co-founder of Fangamer. I feel a bit weird bringing that up since it's not inspiration from a game or some other piece of media, it's a real person, but I decided to throw it in anyway. And since we're talking about real people, Temmie is based on Temmie Chang, who did a lot of art for Undertale. The howling wind at the barrier resembles the track Gygas's Lair from Earthbound. The barrier itself, which seals the monsters underground, may be based on the Great Hakare Barrier from Toho Project, which is the border separating Gensokyo and the outside world. In Homestuck, there are 12 aspects that make up the foundation of reality. One of them is heart, representing the essence of being and one's own identity, essentially, the soul. This might be why souls are represented as hearts in Undertale, but it's not a super uncommon way to depict souls anyway, so I'm not really sure. The intro music to the fight with Asgore is titled Bergentrokung, which is a German word referring to the king asleep in the mountain folklore stories. Asgore's full battle theme, simply titled Asgore, was inspired by The Fog from Persona 4. His place in the story also mirrors the final boss of Brandish, being a cursed king you must defeat to leave the underground. His original design took more direct inspiration from him. In the art book, Toby Fox notes that he was kind of like a combination of Sinistral and King Barabbas from Brandish. King Barabbas, yeah, that checks out. But who the hell is Sinistral? Well, despite how this sentence is worded, Sinistral is not from Brandish, nor is it even a character from anything. Sinistral is the English name for the main group of villains from the Lufia series, with Asgore taking very clear visual inspiration from Amon specifically. This one is an insane reach, but Flowey deleting your save file could be a reference to an anti-piracy check in Earthbound, where if it detected you were playing a bootleg or unauthorized cartridge, it would freeze, crash, and wipe your save right before the Gygus fight. I think it's worth pointing out that a lot of the meta, fourth wall breaking elements in Undertale were inspired by Metal Gear Solid. The mechanic of calling for help multiple times throughout the fight with Omega Flowey could be inspired by Paula needing to pray multiple times in the fight with Gygus. There's two references listed on the fandom wiki that I guess I should bring up, although I don't exactly see either of them. The first is the TV screen resembling Yes Man from Fallout New Vegas. I mean, sure, but TV screens with faces aren't exactly unique to Fallout. And the other is that his appearance is reminiscent of the Icon of Sin from Doom 2. I mean, I guess they both have tubes coming off of them, and a similar general shape, but there's really not that much here. Can I make a tier below red for this one? Also, the bombs in this fight are literally just edited pictures of the Fat Man. Some of the songs in the Soul segments sound very similar to music from Toho Project. The words changing from negative to positive ones during the Purple Soul segment might be inspired by Emperor Leo from Mischief Makers, but that's probably just my own bias. I don't know if it was an intentional reference. The game over screen here has dialogue saying, "This is all just a bad dream, and you're never waking up," which is awfully similar to the game over dialogue from Dr. Andernuts, the final boss of the Earthbound Halloween hack. He also said some other things, but let's not talk about that right now. After Flowey reloads to file 3, he does a troll face. Epic. He also says, "Call for help, I dare you, cry into the darkness, mommy, daddy, somebody help," which is a reference to a similar line in the Gygus fight. The phrase, "but nobody came," is repeated frequently throughout Undertale, and it's a direct quote from the Mother 3 fan translation that occurs when an enemy calls for backup, but nobody arrives. The souls in this fight also somewhat mirror the pure hearts in Super Paper Mario, but as I said earlier, Toby Fox hasn't played that game, so I'm not sure if this was actually an inspiration or not. In the neutral ending, you'll receive a call that changes based on your actions throughout the game. This was actually inspired by the post-credits scene at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, and the idea to have multiple endings was actually confirmed to be inspired by Cave Story. When creating True Lab's art, Toby Fox used Clock Tower for the SNES as an inspiration for the color palette, and the fog here was created using Chrono Trigger as a reference. The Amalgamate's laughter sound is from the same McDonald's commercial Flowey's voice clips are from. Attacking the amalgams will rapidly flash text, one of which is "I'm lovin' it," the slogan for McDonald's. Memory Head's appearance is based on Gygus and the soul-consuming flame from Earthbound. I don't really see the second one, but Toby Fox said it himself, so who am I to question it? Lemon Bread's name comes from Melon Bread, a boss in Gunstar Heroes, and one of its attacks is even similar to the appearance of that boss. This might just be me, but I've always thought the Everyman kinda looks like the bear enemies from Off. The concept of the amalgamates being combined from other enemies throughout the game is something Toby Fox used in the past, as the Halloween hack has enemies with the same name and concept. The battle music Amalgam was originally created for a collab album, but remade for Undertale, and it uses multiple samples from Earthbound tracks such as Threed Zombie Central and The Cliff That Time Forgot, but most prominently The Place. Which itself samples the opening to Deirdre by the Beach Boys. It also samples the sound of Gygus breathing. The plot importance of the Golden Flowers might be inspired by Mother 3, which prominently features sunflowers in its story. Undyne telling Asgore, "That's rough, buddy," is a reference to the iconic scene from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
My first girlfriend turned into the moon. That's rough, buddy.
Asriel's boss fight appearance seemingly takes inspiration from Sariel, the final boss of Highly Responsive to Prayers, the first Toho game, as they share similar outfits and their names are anagrams. Asriel's name is also derived from Azrael, the angel of death in Judaism and Islam. I usually don't put much stake in these religious connections, but this one was actually confirmed in the Legends of Localization book, so those earlier ones I kind of brushed off might actually be more plausible than I thought. Gameplay-wise, the rainbow star attacks and lasers are possibly inspired by Marisa Kurosame from Toho, and his move called Star Blazing is probably named after Blazing Star, one of her spell cards. He even has his own Master Spark. The psychedelic background here also just reminds me of Earthbound, but I don't know if that was actually an inspiration here or not. The battle music Hopes and Dreams takes inspiration from the band Anamanaguchi, which frequently blend rock and chiptune, although I can't play their music to compare. There's also a reference to the Homestuck track Doctor found in the piano. It's kind of hard to hear, so here's a version without the main melody uploaded by Jamie CD. The final attack of Phase 1, Hyper Gorner, is named after a move the final boss of Final Fantasy VI uses called Gorner. The song at the start of Phase 2, Burn and Despair, is potentially inspired by Pokey Means Business from Earthbound. The actual Phase 2 track, Save the World, uses the same chord progression as Last Battle from Cave Story. This part of the fight possibly takes inspiration from the final boss of Mother 3, but I won't be showing that because unlike Gygus, it's not the most spoiled thing ever. Like, let's be real here, you knew what Gygus was before you clicked on this video, but there's a good chance you don't know how Mother 3 ends, and I'm not going to show it here. The phrase "but it refused" also takes inspiration from Seiken Densetsu 3, or Trials of Mana if you're not in Japan. Toby Fox just said there's probably some influence here when it happened on the stream, so I don't really know what he was talking about specifically. Maybe he just meant the fight in general? I haven't played it, so I don't know. In the pacifist ending, you get the chance to re-explore the entire game and speak with every single NPC who all have new dialogue. This is pretty obviously inspired by Earthbound, which similarly lets you re-explore its world and talk with its inhabitants after defeating the final boss. There's a prompt when Asgore asks you what anime is, where you can explain it as cartoons with sword is or with gun is. The incorrect punctuation here is actually a reference to the way it gets intentionally misspelled in Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden. In the pacifist postgame, Icewolf speaks in a very similar manner to Ice Bear from the cartoon We Bare Bears. On its own this isn't a super strong connection, but Toby Fox did go on to voice a cameo role in a 2023 episode of the show. The enemy roll call could be inspired by a few different games, but as with most things in Undertale, I'd say it's most likely Earthbound. And finally, I want to end with the annoying dog, since you've been seeing it all video. This is a self-insert character for Toby Fox, and it gets used as his online avatar nowadays. In Earthbound, there is a small white dog who, when spoken to, gets temporarily possessed by the game designer, and works as a kind of self-insert for Earthbound's creator, Shigesato Itoi. But unfortunately this is not confirmed as an inspiration, so I can't give it the annoying dog rating in the corner. And yeah, that just about covers everything I could find. Despite all that, this video is probably only comprehensive-ish. I tried to be as thorough as I could, but there's just so much packed into Undertale that I'm sure there's things I missed. There's probably some niche JRPG or Homestuck reference that would go completely over my head. If there's anything I left out, please let me know. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting and learned something new. Now, you're probably thinking one of two things at the end of this video. Either, wow, you can find inspiration anywhere, and Undertale is a love letter to the things its creator likes. Or, wow, Toby Fox is a hack who's never had an original thought in his life. Which, to be fair, he does say stuff like that about himself. But if you couldn't tell by the fact that I made this video at all, I generally agree with the former. Everything ever created is going to be inspired by what its creator has experienced before. That's just the nature of creation. But how much it shines through in the finished product can vary a lot, and Undertale isn't afraid to put it on full display. Toby Fox has never shied away from letting his inspirations be known. I can understand if someone found the sheer amount of references annoying, but I think it's fine for an indie project like this to pay homage to the stuff its creator likes, and it never really clashes with the tone or anything. A lot of these still read as jokes and fit in with Undertale's bizarre humor even if you don't get the reference. And I think it's kind of beautiful how Undertale is now a part of this cycle. It's a game with many inspirations that has now gone on to inspire many. In my opinion, one of the greatest things a piece of art can do is make you want to create something of your own, no matter what it is or how derivative it may end up appearing. And I think it's cool how Undertale now represents both sides of that idea. Thanks for watching, and take it easy. Also, before anyone asks, I do not have plans to do one of these for Deltarune. This video was already a way bigger project than I was expecting it to be, and Deltarune's scale just completely dwarfs Undertale, and it's not even done yet. That would just be way too much for me to cover on my own.